Luke chapter 13. You know what? I have misplaced my notes. This is the second time this morning I've done this. This could be a long service. Could you get those for me, Paul? Thank you. Let's read Luke chapter 13. I think they're in the office there. Beginning in verse 1. There were present at that season some that told him of the Galileans, whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifices. And Jesus answering said unto them, Suppose ye that these Galileans were sinners above all the Galileans because they suffered such things? I tell you, nay, but except ye repent, ye shall all likewise perish. Or those 18 upon whom the tower of Siloam fell, and slew them. Think ye that they were sinners above all men that dwelt in Jerusalem? I tell you, nay, but except ye repent, ye shall all likewise perish. He spake also this parable. A certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came and sought fruit thereon, and found none. Then said he unto the dresser of his vineyard, Behold, these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this fig tree, and find none. Cut it down. Why cumbereth it the ground? And he answering said to him, Lord, let it alone this year also, till I shall dig about it and dung it. And if it bear fruit, well. And if not, then after that thou shalt cut it down. We've been going through a series on the parables. We will be able to finish this series before the end of the year. And we have come to a section of parables which would be described best by parables that have a specific and immediate application to Israel. There is also an application to us today at the same time, but the specific application Jesus gives is to the nation of Israel. There's a few parables, I believe it is 3 of them, that are in this kind of application. This is one of those. A man named Judas Galonitis, or Judas of Galilee, gathered together a band of Galileans, if you remember Jesus was a Galilean as well, refusing to pay tribute to Caesar, rebelled against the government, enraging Pilate, procurator of Judea. Pilate plotted his revenge for this embarrassment before his Roman superiors and made a public spectacle of these backward Galileans who dared to challenge the Roman authority. Judas led these followers into the wilderness to escape the wrath of Pilate. But as a band of his followers came up later to Jerusalem to sacrifice, Pilate's troops surrounded them, brutally killing them, and their blood being mingled with their sacrifice. This account is referenced again in Acts chapter 5, when a man named Gallio stands up with Peter and John on trial for preaching, and Gallio, a member of the Pharisees, stands up and says, Before you do harm to these men, consider that if this be of God, their preaching, we can't do anything against it. And then he said, Remember there was one Judas who led away these Galileans into the wilderness, and they came to nothing. And so this is a historical account that historians record, and Acts chapter 5, we see it recorded here, and probably in Acts chapter 5, they're talking about this event that was happening simultaneously with Jesus' life. In other words, what is talking about in Luke chapter 13 is the news of the day. This would be quite big news if you were in Judea, because the Jews were always looking for someone to deliver them from the Roman oppression. I find it interesting. There are some similarities between this Jesus and that Judas of Galilee. This is not the Judas who betrayed Jesus. Don't get the wrong people here. They were both of Galilee. Both had a following. Both were influential with people. But one main difference was that Judas was seeking to overthrow the oppressive rule and to right the social wrong. That was not Jesus' purpose, nor his interest. Jesus came to solve a deeper, more lasting need than the social ills and governmental tyranny. He came to meet the need of forgiveness from sin. Jesus taught to render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. Jesus taught, pay your taxes. Put it practically. He didn't fight battles of political nature. You know why he didn't? That wasn't his purpose. He was there to save souls. He was there, as he said, to seek and to save that which were lost. That's a higher purpose. Governments come and go. The soul is eternal. Jesus was more concerned about internal obedience and morality than he was external so-called change and progress. Judas was concerned with the political problems in Rome, and I'm not here to say that he was illegitimately concerned with that, or that he shouldn't have done what he did. In fact, Jesus won't give an answer regarding whether he should or shouldn't have done this. Because Jesus says, this is not my concern. This is not what I'm about. But Jesus, we know, was concerned with the spiritual problems in Israel. That's the main difference between this Judas of Galilee and Jesus of Galilee. Judas was concerned with the political problems in Israel. Jesus was concerned with the spiritual problems in Israel. We don't know all that these individuals were thinking, but very obviously they were concerned about the long-term effects of following Jesus. We find that in Luke chapter 12 that the crowds are following Jesus, and they're so large that this is the only time in the Bible it says this, that they trampled each other to get to Jesus. You could say this was a definite high point in Jesus' popularity. The crowds trampled one another to get to him. That's the same time. Verse 1 says they were present at that season. This is the same time we're talking about here. And I can't help but wonder, with these huge crowds following Jesus and happening simultaneously, the record, this did not happen in Jerusalem, this was outside of Jerusalem. The record, did you just hear what happened in Jerusalem? Those who had revolted against Caesar, Pilate had their blood mixed with their sacrifices by killing them as they came to sacrifice. I cannot help but think that they were not wondering, will this same thing befall us if we continue to follow this Galilean? What's going to happen to us? And they seem to have done what humans tend to do, and that is to be able to rationalize and make excuses and find a reason why it's not going to happen to me. Have you ever thought that before? Have you ever heard anybody say that? Oh, that's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to get caught in that. I'm not going to get addicted. That's not going to happen to me. That's human condition. We all think that way. And they were thinking that very same way. Because they come to Jesus, and we don't know why they said it. I think I have some good ideas from the context and from just knowing what's going on in the broader picture here. And Jesus' response, we don't know exactly what they were thinking, but they were comparing themselves with these others. Jesus indicates that in verse 2. They were comparing themselves with these others. Jesus masterfully turns the tables back on the people, encouraging them to consider not the demise, the failure, the faults perceived or incorrectly perceived or correctly perceived of others, but their own spiritual condition. Because he asks them this question. He says, suppose ye, or do you think, he turns it around, well, you're giving me this news, but do you think that these Galileans were sinners and that's why they died? Do you think they were killed because of their sin? Now, when I was studying this and I was thinking about this, I can't help but think of things I heard when Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans. And I heard many Christians saying, well, that's what New Orleans deserved, that filthy place. Which, probably true. I heard many Christians say, we know that's the hand of God's judgment upon that place because of the Mardi Gras and all the other things that go on down there. I'm not all-knowing, thankfully. I don't know what God's plans are. But friends, that's a dangerous thing to say. That is exactly what they were saying here. These Galileans, well, they must have been greater sinners, and that's why the revolt came to nothing. And it's almost as if, without being said, it's understood, but not us. That won't happen to us. I wonder if they're trying to reassure themselves that they can keep following Jesus. And the same thing's not going to happen to them. That's not going to happen to us. They were busy judging other people's sins while falling headfirst into hell themselves. That's dangerous. Jesus routinely emphasizes an internal focus rather than external judgment. He spoke of being careful in judgment of hypocrisy. He says, for with what judgment we judge, the same will be meted out to us in Matthew chapter 7.